The restaurant kitchen was alive with sound, clattering pans, rushing servers, and the low hum of conversation that filled the air before the lunch rush. "Take your hands off my laptop." Maya Carter's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Every head turned. The security guard froze, her laptop halfway between them. At the far end of the kitchen, a tall man in an immaculate suit stopped mid-step. His cold, assessing eyes locked on Maya. That man was Ethan Cole, billionaire founder of Novatech Systems, one of the most powerful tech companies in the world. And at that moment, he believed Maya was stealing from him. "Arrest her," he ordered, his voice sharp and commanding. "She's accessing confidential Novatech security files." The room fell silent. Even the sizzle of the grill seemed to die away. But instead of fear, a calm, defiant smile appeared on Maya's face. What did a waitress with calloused hands and a second-hand laptop know that could possibly threaten a billionaire? The truth was, in the next 72 hours, what happened in that kitchen would ignite a chain of events that would shake Silicon Valley to its core. And it all began with a young woman who refused to back down. Maya woke up every morning at 4:30 a.m., not because she loved early mornings, but because those hours were the only time she had to chase her dream before life demanded her attention. In a small apartment on the south side of Redwood City, she sat hunched over her makeshift workstation, 3 mismatched monitors, a flickering desk lamp, and a keyboard that had lost half its letters. Lines of code glowed softly in the dark. Her fingers moved fast, her focus unshakable. She wasn't just coding. She was building something she believed could change the future of cybersecurity. A system that didn't just protect data, but made breaches almost impossible. "Maya, Eli needs his permission slip signed." Her mother's tired voice called from the kitchen. "Coming, Mom," she replied softly, saving her work before rushing to help. By 7 o'clock, Maya had made breakfast, packed lunches, signed forms, and dropped her younger siblings off at school. Her mother's health was worsening, the hospital bills growing heavier each month. The scholarship application for the computer science program still sat half-finished on her desk, her one fragile chance at an education she couldn't afford. At 9 sharp, she clocked in at Benson's Bistro, an upscale restaurant just across from Novatech headquarters. She tucked her laptop into her locker where it stayed hidden during shifts. "Morning, Maya," called out Julian, the head chef. "Novatech's CEO is coming in today. Big reservation for the launch team." Her heart gave a quick, nervous thump. "Ethan Cole himself?" Julian nodded. "The man, the myth, the billionaire." Maya tied her apron, forcing a neutral smile. She had studied every piece of public code Novatech had ever released. She knew their architecture, their style, even their mistakes. She'd even fixed one of their open-source bugs once, anonymously. To most people, Novatech employees were untouchable tech elites. But to Maya, they were just people solving problems she could solve too, if only someone would give her a chance. By noon, the restaurant was filled with people wearing Novatech lanyards and sleek hoodies. Maya served table after table, overhearing bits of conversation about a new revolutionary security system, one she already knew had serious flaws. Her break came right after the lunch rush. She slipped into a quiet corner near the prep station, opened her laptop and began coding. Her solution was cleaner, more efficient, and 10 times more secure than what Novatech was building. She wasn't trying to outsmart them. She just wanted to prove that talent doesn't always come from the top. Her fingers flew across the keys. She was deep in concentration, so focused that she didn't notice the approaching footsteps until the manager's voice broke through the calm. "Mr. Cole, would you like to see our new kitchen?" Her heart stopped. Ethan Cole. Right there. He walked in surrounded by executives, his tailored suit a sharp contrast to the kitchen's clatter and heat. Maya should have closed her laptop. She knew it, but she had just reached a critical point in her code. If she stopped now, she'd lose the thread. One more minute. That's all she needed, but that single minute would change her entire life. Ethan Cole paused mid-tour. His eyes narrowed at the glow of Maya's screen. He stepped closer. "What is that?" he demanded. Maya turned, startled. "It's just a personal project, sir." "I'm on my break," Cole's gaze hardened. "That's our code. Our security algorithm." "No, it's not. It's my own work," he laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "You expect me to believe a waitress developed something identical to our proprietary system?" He turned to his team. Call security. Sir, please, now. 2 guards appeared instantly and one reached for her laptop. Wait, Maya pulled back. That's my property. Everything I've built is on there. Or everything you've stolen. Cole's voice was ice. Our product launches in 3 days. You think it's a coincidence that a waitress across the street has our system on her screen? The guard snatched the laptop, snapping it shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Maya's hands trembled. I can prove it's mine, she said, her voice low but steady. I have documentation, versions, everything. But Cole wasn't listening. He turned to the manager. Background checker. I want to know who she really is. The room's air felt heavy. Co-workers she'd known for months stared at her with wide, uncertain eyes. The word hacker hung in the air like poison. As she was escorted to the back office, whispers followed her every step. Her future, her scholarship, her family's stability, her dream, all slipping away because one powerful man made a snap judgment. Maya sat alone in the manager's office, her hands trembling in her lap. The voices outside blurred together, snippets of accusation, confusion, and fear. The sound of the door opening jolted her. 2 uniformed security guards entered, followed by a man in a dark suit who introduced himself as the head of Novatech's internal security. Miss Carter, he said, setting a folder on the desk. We're taking your laptop for analysis. You're being placed on unpaid leave until we determine what you were doing with company material. It's my own work, Maya replied, her voice barely steady. I didn't steal anything. I can prove it. Then you'll have your chance, he said coldly. But if we find any trace of our code on your system, the consequences will be severe. When the door shut behind them, silence filled the small office. Her future felt like it was collapsing in on itself. Her mother's medicine, her siblings' school fees, her unfinished scholarship application, everything depended on the reputation that was now being torn apart. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. It was a message from her mother. Will you be home for dinner? Eli has his science project tonight. Maya couldn't bring herself to reply. She stared at the words until they blurred. How do you explain to your family that your whole life just fell apart because of someone else's assumptions? Hours later, in a glass-walled conference room across the street, Ethan Cole stood before a group of Novatech executives. On the table sat Maya's confiscated laptop, open and glowing. Let's see what she was really doing, he ordered. The room grew quiet as analysts navigated through her files. At first, they expected to find stolen credentials, copied code, or traces of network access. But what they saw made them stop. Sir, one of them said slowly, this isn't what we thought. Cole frowned. Explain. She hasn't accessed our systems. Not once. Everything on this laptop was built from scratch. Documented, version, tested. She's been developing her own authentication software. Then why does it look like ours? Cole snapped. The analyst hesitated. Because her version is cleaner. More efficient. Honestly, sir, it's better. The room went still. Cole crossed his arms, disbelief etched on his face. You're saying a waitress built a superior version of the system my engineers have been developing for a year? That's exactly what I'm saying, the analyst replied quietly. Her commit history goes back 6 months before our first prototype. She might have solved the flaw that's delaying the launch. Cole's expression darkened. Bring her here. When Maya was escorted into Novatech headquarters, the gleaming glass walls felt like they were closing in. She was seated across from Ethan Cole himself, who studied her like she was a puzzle he didn't want to solve. You expect me to believe you built this yourself? He asked. Yes, Maya said firmly. I've been coding since I was 16. I taught myself everything I know because I couldn't afford to go to school. The system you saw was built from first principles. I can explain every line, Cole leaned back. And we're supposed to take your word for that? You don't have to, she said. I can show you. He tapped his fingers against the table. Our team has been trying to fix a vulnerability for weeks. If you really develop this independently, maybe you can help us. But understand this, if we find out you've stolen anything, you'll never work in this industry again. Maya nodded. Then give me a chance to prove myself. Cole gestured to his security chief. Set up a test environment. 48 hours. No internet, no outside access. She rebuilds her system from scratch. The head of security gave a thin smile. And if she fails? Then she'll face the consequences, Cole said. Maya felt a cold knot tighten in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. And if I succeed? Cole's eyes met hers. Then we'll talk. As she was led away, she overheard the security chief whisper to Cole, "Sir, we could still press charges. Even if she passes, it doesn't prove she didn't copy ideas." Cole didn't reply. His gaze lingered on her laptop screen, where lines of elegant code glowed softly in the dark. He didn't want to admit it, but what he'd seen there was genius. Later that night, Maya sat in a sterile white room inside Novatech headquarters, a single monitor in front of her. No internet, no notes, no contact with the outside world. She stared at the blank screen. She had 48 hours to rebuild months of work, prove her innocence, and maybe, just maybe, change her life. Her phone buzzed once before it was taken away by security. The last message she saw read, "Don't forget dinner tonight, love." Eli's so excited. She took a deep breath, rested her hands on the keyboard, and began to type. Outside that locked room, the people who doubted her were preparing to watch her fail. What they didn't know was that Maya Carter wasn't just fighting for her code. She was fighting for every unseen person who had ever been told they didn't belong, and she was about to show them all exactly what belonging looked like. The first night inside Novatech's secure room felt endless. The lights hummed softly overhead, and the only sound was the rhythmic tapping of keys. Every keystroke was a battle against exhaustion and doubt. Maya's mind raced through months of past work, recreating every function, every test case, every subtle algorithm that had once lived on her confiscated laptop. A guard stood by the door, arms crossed, watching her like she might try to escape through the code itself. Every few hours he brought her water or coffee, never saying a word. The silence pressed against her chest, heavy and cold. At 2 a.m, her screen glowed with the first signs of progress. The architecture was coming together. Her system was beginning to breathe again. But fatigue was creeping in fast, her hands cramping, her eyelids heavy. She forced herself to keep going. Stopping wasn't an option. If she failed this test, she'd lose everything: her name, her future, her mother's care. The next morning, the door opened. Maya tensed, expecting the security chief, but instead a woman with sharp eyes and a Novatech badge entered. She had dark hair pulled back neatly and carried a small tablet. "You're using a modified zero-knowledge proof protocol," the woman said calmly, stepping closer to Maya's screen. Maya's fingers froze above the keyboard. "Who are you?" "Dr. Lena Torres, head of cryptographic systems." She pulled up a chair without waiting for permission. "I asked to observe your verification. You don't mind, do you?" Maya hesitated. "As long as you're not here to accuse me again." Lena smiled faintly. "No. I'm here because something about your code doesn't add up, and that's a good thing." Maya blinked. "What do you mean?" "I reviewed your GitHub history," Lena said. "You're the developer who fixed our open-source API bug last year, aren't you? The one under the username CodeRaven91? Maya's eyes widened. "You remember that, I do. That fix prevented a major breach. We never knew who submitted it." Lena leaned closer, her tone lowering. "When Ethan told me about your work, I checked your history myself. Everything you've built predates our own authentication prototype." Maya's breath caught. "So you know I didn't steal it." "I do, but others don't want to believe that," Lena said softly. "There's politics at play here. The head of security, Malcolm Red, has been lobbying to outsource our security development. Your discovery threatens his entire pitch." Maya frowned. "So he's trying to make me the villain?" Lena nodded. "Exactly. And deleting the restaurant's footage makes his story stronger. Someone inside this company doesn't want you proven innocent." The realization sent a chill through Maya. "You think they deleted it?" "I don't think I know. I traced the access logs. The deletion came from Malcolm's admin credentials." Lena's voice was steady, her eyes sharp. "But I can't prove intent without getting caught myself." Maya looked down at her code. "Then what do I do?" "You finish," Lena said. "Build something so brilliant they can't deny it. Make your work undeniable." Maya leaned back in her chair. "That's easier said than done." Lena placed a small flash drive on the desk. "This contains documentation from our public-facing system architecture. Nothing classified, but it'll help you align your solution with Novatech's framework. Use it wisely." Maya hesitated. "Why help me?" Lena's expression softened. "Because I know what it's like to be underestimated. Years ago, I was just another junior engineer without a degree. People doubted me too. I'm helping you because you remind me of the person I used to be." Before leaving, Lena paused at the door. "Be ready. Malcolm will try to sabotage your test. If you fail, he wins. If you succeed, he'll find another way to discredit you. Maya nodded slowly. Then I'll make sure he can't. When the door shut, she turned back to her screen. The flash drive sat beside her keyboard, glinting under the harsh fluorescent light like a secret weapon. The next few hours blurred together. Every variable, every function was rewritten from memory. She improved on her original design: faster algorithms, smarter verification layers, stronger encryption logic. Her mind was a storm of focus and precision. The exhaustion no longer mattered. Fear was gone. There was only purpose now. By evening, her system was taking shape again. She ran the first test, and it passed. Then another. Then another. 12 hours into her verification, the code was holding strong. She wasn't just rebuilding what she'd lost. She was reinventing it. That night, Lena slipped back into the room, closing the door quietly behind her. "You're ahead of schedule," she said, impressed. Maya smiled faintly. "Motivation helps." Lena studied the screen. "This implementation, how did you think of this?" "I built the first version when my mother got sick," Maya said quietly. She had to keep track of medical records across different hospitals, but I didn't trust any of the apps out there. So I made my own system to keep her data private. The more I learned, the more I realized privacy isn't just technical, it's personal. Lena looked at her for a moment. "You're not like most engineers here. They build for profit. You build for people." "I build because I have to," Maya said simply. "If I don't, who will?" Lena nodded, a rare spark of respect in her eyes. "Tomorrow's the final test. Malcolm's already adjusted the requirements to make it harder, but if you stay focused, you can beat him at his own game." Maya met her gaze. "Then that's what I'll do." When Lena left, the door locked behind her with a soft click. The world outside had forgotten her, but inside that white room, Maya was building something no one could ignore. As dawn broke, her eyes burned with fatigue, but the code on her screen was beautiful. Clean, efficient, alive. She didn't know it yet. But what she was about to present would shake Novatech's entire foundation. And Ethan Cole, the man who once accused her of theft, would soon have to decide whether to protect his pride or embrace the future staring him in the face. Morning arrived like a spotlight. The sterile room that had felt endless now seemed too small to hold the storm about to unfold. Maya sat straight, hands folded in her lap, as two guards escorted her to the executive floor. The walls of Novatech gleamed with polished glass and silver, a temple to innovation and ego. Every step echoed her heartbeat. They led her into a vast conference room where the entire senior engineering team was already seated. Ethan Cole stood at the head of the table, sharp as ever, his expression unreadable. To his right sat Malcolm, the head of security, his smirk faint but deliberate. Lena Torres was there too, her face calm but her eyes fierce. "Maya Carter," Ethan said, motioning toward a workstation at the front of the room. "Your verification test begins now." She nodded once, walking to the setup. The keyboard was brand new, the computer spotless. A single terminal window waited on the screen. She could feel the doubt in the room, thick and unspoken. Malcolm slid a folder toward her. "These are the parameters for the test. Updated this morning." Maya scanned the document, her stomach tightening. The specifications were nearly impossible. Multiple encryption layers, time limits, additional security conditions that no one had mentioned before. It was a trap. She looked up. "This isn't what we agreed on." "Requirements evolve," Malcolm said smoothly. "If you really built what you claim, this shouldn't be a problem." Lena's gaze met Maya's. She didn't speak, but her eyes said everything. "They want you to fail." Maya exhaled slowly, then sat down. "Fine," she said quietly. "Let's begin." The room fell silent except for the soft, rapid rhythm of her typing. Her focus tunneled in, the world narrowing to code and logic. She ignored the eyes watching her every move, ignored the tension in her shoulders, ignored the weight of proving her worth to people who had already judged her. 1 hour passed, then 2. At first, whispers spread among the engineers. She wouldn't last long, she didn't stand a chance. But then something shifted. Her screen began filling with structure, architecture, clean logic flows that built upon each other like a puzzle clicking into place. Malcolm leaned forward, his smirk fading. Ethan's brow furrowed. This approach, one engineer whispered. She's not just copying what we've built. She's building something entirely different. 3 hours in, Maya's voice broke the silence. Your system relies on stored verification data, correct? Ethan nodded slowly. Yes. That's your vulnerability, she said. If a hacker compromises that database, they own every user credential. My system doesn't store those values at all. It verifies identity without revealing any data that can be stolen. She continued typing, explaining as she went. Zero knowledge proof, distributed verification, layered encryption. The system never needs to know the user's secret. It only needs proof that the user does. The engineers leaned in. Some began nodding, others looked stunned. Malcolm's jaw tightened. That doesn't prove anything, he snapped. Anyone could memorize stolen code. Lena stepped forward. Except her method isn't ours. It's superior. She's solving problems we haven't even addressed yet. Maya didn't stop. She was too deep in the rhythm now, her hands moving faster, her thoughts sharper. Every line of code carried a piece of her journey. The late nights, the early mornings, the countless rejections. She ran the first test. The system held. She ran the second. Perfect. Then she executed the stress test that Novatech's own protocol had failed repeatedly. Her version passed in seconds. Ethan rose from his chair. Is this real? He asked, almost under his breath. Maya turned toward him, exhaustion and pride woven into her voice. It's real and it's mine. Malcolm slammed his folder shut. Coincidence. Similar problems produce similar solutions. Maya looked at him squarely. Then why does mine work better than yours? A murmur rippled through the engineers. Even the CTO couldn't hide his astonishment. Her code is 20% faster and eliminates our known vulnerability. Ethan studied her. For the first time, the arrogance in his face faltered. He saw not a waitress, but a mind that had outpaced his entire department. Before anyone could speak, a new voice came from the doorway. Perhaps I can clarify what we're seeing here. The room turned as an older man entered. Tall, silver-haired, with a calm authority that drew silence. Lena's expression softened in relief. Dr. Alan Monroe, she said. Ethan's eyes widened. You? I was asked to provide an independent evaluation, Dr. Monroe said, placing his briefcase on the table. Given the nature of the claims. He moved to Maya's workstation and gestured. May I? She stepped aside, her hands still trembling slightly. For several minutes he explored her code in silence. Lines scrolled, functions opened and closed. His eyes flickered with quiet admiration. Then he spoke, his voice steady but powerful. In 25 years of cybersecurity research, I've rarely seen code this refined. Every function has intention. Every structure has logic. This isn't copied. It's authored. Malcolm started to object, but Monroe raised a hand. I've seen Novatech's internal architecture. Her system diverges completely. In fact, it addresses vulnerabilities your team hasn't even identified yet. Ethan's throat tightened. Are you certain? Completely. This is original work. Innovative, elegant, and technically ahead of its time. The room was silent. The weight of his words filled the air. Then Monroe turned to Maya. Where did you study, Miss Carter? Maya smiled faintly. Libraries, forums, free online courses, wherever knowledge was free. A pause. Then Monroe nodded slowly, respect in his tone. Genius rarely asked for permission to exist. Ethan looked at Maya again, but this time his expression wasn't anger. It was realization, the kind that forces a man to confront his own pride. He turned to the room. We'll suspend the investigation effective immediately. Miss Carter, I'd like to speak with you privately. As Maya followed him out, Malcolm's eyes burned with humiliation. Lena met his gaze, her voice low enough for only him to hear. You picked the wrong person to underestimate. Outside, sunlight poured through the tall windows. Maya exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. But she knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of something much larger, something that would force Novatech and the entire tech world to see the talent it had ignored for too long. Ethan's office overlooked the city, the skyline bright and sharp against the afternoon sun. Maya stood near the window, her reflection faint on the glass. She still wore her restaurant uniform, a reminder of the life she had walked out of only days ago. Ethan paced behind his desk, his confidence quieter now. "You understand," he began carefully. "What you've built could redefine authentication technology. We've been trying to solve this vulnerability for over a year. You did it alone, without resources, without funding." Maya met his eyes. "Without being believed," she said softly. He stopped pacing. The words hung there for a moment, undeniable. "You've proven me wrong," he admitted. "And for that you have my respect. But I'm offering something more. Join us. Lead a new security division at Novatech. You'll have full access, funding, and a team. I want you to finish what you started with us." Maya took a deep breath. "And my laptop?" Ethan nodded to his assistant, who placed it gently on the desk. "Everything has been restored. Nothing deleted." Her fingers brushed the lid, relief washing through her. "And the accusations?" "Formally withdrawn," he said. "Malcolm Red will face an internal review. Deleting that footage was his decision, not mine." A knock interrupted them. Lena stepped inside, a faint smile touching her face. "The engineers are already implementing Maya's system. Early tests show a 40% improvement in security efficiency." Ethan turned back to Maya. "Your work saved our launch. If you hadn't fought back, Novatech might have collapsed under its own flaw." She studied him for a long moment. "You thought I was stealing from you," she said quietly. "Now you're asking me to lead you." "I was wrong," Ethan said. "You earned this. The world should know where true innovation comes from." Maya looked down at her hands, the same hands that once scrubbed tables and now held the power to change everything. "If I take this job," she said slowly, "it has to mean something." "Not just for me," Ethan frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I want Novatech to create a program for people like me. Self-taught developers who don't have degrees but have talent. We'll train them, mentor them, and hire them based on skill, not credentials." Lena's eyes brightened. "A fellowship program. A movement," Maya corrected. "Call it the Nova Initiative. No more gatekeeping. No more wasted potential." Ethan considered it for a long moment. Then to her surprise, he nodded. "Do it. Make it real." The press conference came 2 days later. Cameras lined the lobby, reporters murmuring as the stage lights dimmed. Ethan stood at the podium first, his tone measured but humble. "Today we celebrate more than a product launch. We celebrate a new chapter at Novatech, one led by vision, resilience, and extraordinary talent." He gestured toward the side of the stage. "Please welcome our new Director of Security Innovation, Maya Carter." The applause was immediate and thunderous. Maya stepped forward, her voice calm but steady. "A few days ago I was accused of stealing the very thing I created. But sometimes what people fear isn't theft, it's disruption. The truth is, talent doesn't wear a name tag. It doesn't always come from where we expect. It can be found anywhere, if we're willing to look." Reporters scribbled notes furiously as she continued. "I stand here not just for myself, but for everyone who's been told they weren't qualified enough, connected enough, or educated enough. This company will now open its doors to those voices. Because innovation doesn't belong to one type of person. It belongs to everyone brave enough to create." When she finished, the room rose to its feet. Cameras flashed, but what she noticed most were the faces. Young, old, hopeful. After the conference, she went back to Benson's bistro one last time. The smell of roasted garlic and butter filled the air, the clatter of dishes as familiar as a heartbeat. Julian came out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "There she is," he said with a grin. "The tech world's newest legend." Maya laughed, hugging him tightly. "I wouldn't go that far." He pulled back, looking at her proudly. "You proved them wrong, kid. All of them." At a corner table, her mother sat with her siblings, smiling through tears. Her health had already begun to improve with the company's medical support. Maya joined them, the noise of the restaurant fading into the background. For the first time in years, she could breathe without fear of what came next. Weeks passed. The Nova Initiative took shape faster than anyone expected. Applications poured in from all over the world. Warehouse workers who coded at night. Teachers who built apps in their classrooms. Single parents who had taught themselves Python while raising children. Each story mirrored hers in some way. Lena became head of the program, and together they interviewed every applicant personally. Ethan funded it without hesitation. Even Dr. Monroe joined as an advisor. 1 year later, Maya stood at a stage in Novatech's new innovation center. Rows of chairs were filled with the first 100 fellowship recipients. She looked out at them, so many faces that once would have been overlooked, and felt her chest tighten with pride. "When I was writing code in a tiny apartment before dawn," she began, "I thought I was alone. But I wasn't. I was part of a world full of hidden brilliance, people like all of you who dream big without permission." She paused, letting her words settle. "Your backgrounds don't define you. Your determination does. Keep building, keep learning, and keep proving that talent can come from anywhere." The room rose in applause, echoing through the vast hall. As it quieted, Maya noticed a young woman near the back, a waitress uniform, a worn-out laptop on her lap, her eyes wide and full of fire. Maya smiled. She knew that look. That was how revolutions started, one unseen genius at a time. Outside, the sky glowed gold over the city. For the first time, the doors of Novatech stood open to everyone, and inside those walls, where arrogance once ruled, something new had taken root. Proof that brilliance had no boundaries. It wasn't just Maya's victory anymore. It was the beginning of a world that finally understood what she had always known. Innovation can be served with coffee. It can rise before dawn. It can come from anyone willing to dream and never give up. The Novatech campus had changed. Where once there had been sterile walls and closed doors, laughter and new voices now filled the corridors. People from backgrounds that had never touched technology before were writing code in glass-walled labs, debating ideas that mattered, building tools that could protect and empower millions. Maya walked through the open atrium, taking it in. Her name was now on the door of an entire division, but it never felt like ownership, it felt like responsibility. Every line of code she saw reminded her of someone like her, once unseen, now finally building in the open. She reached the main hall where Ethan waited. He looked older, not in years but in humility. When he saw her, he smiled in that careful way of someone still learning how to listen. "The numbers came in this morning," he said, handing her a tablet. "The new security platform just crossed 200 million active users. 0 breaches since launch." Maya took the device, scanning the figures. "It worked," she said quietly. "It worked because you refused to give up," Ethan replied. "You changed how we see talent, how we hire, how we lead." Maya set the tablet down. "I didn't do it alone." He nodded toward the labs beyond the glass. "No, you didn't, but you started it." The conference bell chimed in the distance, signaling the first annual gathering of the Nova Initiative. Scholars, developers, and self-taught innovators were already taking their seats. When Maya stepped onto the stage, the applause rose like a wave. She waited until it settled, her voice clear when she spoke. "A year ago, I stood in a room full of people who thought I didn't belong. I was accused, dismissed, and told that what I created couldn't possibly be mine. But here we are, together. Proof that brilliance doesn't care about where you come from." She paused, scanning the crowd. Faces full of anticipation, some already wiping away tears they didn't expect to shed. "Every single one of you represents a world of potential that was once ignored. You're not just programmers, you're builders of possibility." Lena watched from the front row, her eyes gleaming. Ethan stood beside her, his arms crossed loosely, no longer a wall of pride but a bridge in progress. Maya continued, her tone steady and passionate. "We talk about technology as if it's just code and machines, but it's more than that. It's people. It's mothers staying up after midnight to learn something new. It's students without tutors who refuse to stop asking questions. It's dreamers who find beauty in logic and courage in curiosity." The audience hung on every word. She didn't sound like an executive giving a speech, she sounded like someone telling the truth. "This program isn't charity," she said. "It's correction. It's what happens when the world finally looks beyond the surface and decides that opportunity should belong to everyone willing to earn it." She stepped closer to the edge of the stage. "There will always be people who doubt you. They'll tell you that your dreams are too big, that you don't fit the mold, that your time will never come. When they do, remember this moment. Remember that the mold can be broken." The crowd rose again, the sound of applause filling the hall like thunder. When it quieted, Maya looked toward the back where a young man in a mechanic's uniform was recording the speech on his phone. His fingers stained with oil, his eyes full of fire. She smiled at him the same way she once looked toward the future, with defiance and hope mixed together. After the event, as the crowd dispersed, Lena joined her on the balcony overlooking the courtyard. "You know what's next, right?" Maya turned toward her. "Expansion?" "Global expansion," Lena said. "We've already had interest from universities and governments. They want to replicate the initiative's model." Maya let out a soft laugh. "From a kitchen to this." "From being underestimated to being unstoppable," Lena corrected. Below them, hundreds of people were gathering for workshops, their laughter echoing off the glass walls. Maya leaned on the railing, the city's light stretching endlessly ahead. Ethan approached quietly. "I've approved the new funding," he said. "The NOVA initiative goes worldwide next quarter." Maya turned to him. "Then it's not just a program anymore. It's a movement," he nodded. "And it started because one person refused to stay silent." For a moment, they stood together. No titles, no hierarchy. Just two people who had learned from each other. Then Ethan extended his hand. "Congratulations, Director Carter." Maya shook it, a smile tugging at her lips. "It's not the title that matters," she said. "It's what we do with it." Later that night, when the building was quiet and the city outside shimmered with distant lights, Maya sat in her office with her old laptop open, the one that had once been taken from her as evidence. She opened the first project she ever wrote, the clumsy little program she'd built for her mother's medication schedule. The code was simple, but it was the beginning of everything. Her reflection in the screen was older now, stronger, but behind her eyes still burned the same fire. She smiled faintly and whispered to herself, "Still coding." The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. Then she began to type. Outside, a new dawn crept across the city, lighting up the skyline that had once seemed unreachable. Now it was hers to change, and she wasn't done yet. Because the story of Maya Carter wasn't just about a waitress who became a director. It was about every unseen genius who ever dared to believe that their time would come. And now, the world was finally ready to listen.